Keeland, every moment matters.
Welcome to another edition of the TDN Writers Room podcast presented by Keeland. My name is Bill Finley. I'm a correspondent for the Thoroughbred Daily News, and it's 16 degrees here in New Jersey today, and I'm freezing my you-know-what off. Randy?
Oh, Bill sends me scrambling to my phone here. Hang on just a second. I'm Randy Moss, by the way, NBC Sports, where I live in suburban Minneapolis. It is 4 degrees. And the high temperature on Friday is scheduled to be 10 below.
Ouch.
There you go.
I win. Okay. You won't be there, Randy Moss, with NBC Sports, who'll be covering the Pegasus.
That's true.
I am Zoe Cadman with First TV, and I will be covering the Pegasus as well. It is currently 75 degrees here in sunny California. It will be 80 at the Pegasus and sunny on Saturday.
And we're supposed to get snow this weekend. Zoe, have a great time down at the Pegasus. All right, guys, lots to talk about this week. A busy week in racing, but I think the story that right now is on the minds of most people is what transpired last week in California, where really with no advance notice whatsoever, Santa Anita put in something called Racing on Demand machines. They are a version very similar to HHR machines, and they put them in for an obvious reason. They need revenue, and they were hoping that this would be the answer. Zoe, why don't you're the person on the scene out there for us. I think most of our listeners know the nuts and bolts of the story, but why don't you just bring us up to speed on what happened and especially what happened later on when the machines were confiscated and taken away from the property.
Okay, so this is basically what happened. Last week on Thursday, we didn't even get a chance to celebrate this. Santa Anita quietly put in 26 racing on-demand terminals in the former Wizards Lounge in the grandstand at Santa Anita. We all went and played them. A few of the trainers went and played them. They're pretty easy to use. You have to pick the first 3 home in 3 races in a row. So it was pretty easy. So they were in Thursday and Friday. And then on Saturday around about the 8th race, we saw a herd of police coming in, and it was the Department of Justice. The DOJ came in, seized the machines. According to Scott DeRudy, the lawyer for First Racing, there was no court order, no court action, and no seizure warrant. They came in, they took the machines, everything was shut down on Saturday. Scott DeRudy, the lawyer for the Stronach Group, First Racing, has not minced his words talking about what has happened since. Basically, we went through everything for the last couple of years to try and make sure these machines are legal. It will now be taken to court. DeRudy was quoted as saying, anyone who keeps an eye on California politics knows how much money the tribes spend and knows, let's say, how influential they can be to politicians. So that's basically it in a nutshell, and it's going to go to the courts and we'll go from there. No one seems terribly concerned that it's going to court. This just seems to be another step, hopefully, in the right direction. Yeah,
well, you'd have to think, given the political realities, that the Santa Anita would be up against some pretty stiff headwinds here. For people that don't know what we're talking about, let me give you a little quickie background here. Back in the 1990s, Oaklawn Park in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which had been one of the fastest growing racetracks in the country, suddenly found itself surrounded by casino gambling on all sides. They tried to get casinos for themselves. They were rebuffed electorally. So the general manager, now retired, Eric Jackson, longtime general manager, came up with an idea. Right? He said, look, people seem to prefer the fast action of slot machines. They don't want to sit down and spend a lot of time handicapping horse races. They want the action. So why don't I try to come up with a machine that is actually pari-mutuel, but it mimics a slot machine in that rapid action? He came up with the idea. One of the smartest guys I've ever known. He took it to Amtote, and they developed these machines called instant racing. That's what they were called at the time. They had them installed at Oaklawn Park, and this is very important. They were approved legislatively in the state of Arkansas. Now they just have full-on slot machines, but back then they started with these machines that initially looked like they had a horse racing look to them, and then gradually they morphed into something that was really almost identical to a slot machine in operation and looks, except it was wired theoretically to be parimutuel, right? It went to Kentucky. It spread to Kentucky. They installed a ton of them. There was a court challenge in Kentucky. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the machines were not parimutuel, and therefore they could not be used in the state of Kentucky. So what happened in Kentucky? The legislators, horse racing, very powerful in Kentucky, just like in Arkansas, they changed the definition of parimutuel racing in the state statutes so that the machines would now be legal. And that's how Kentucky did it. Same thing with Wyoming, right? Wyoming did the same thing. They were, the Supreme Court ruled against them. They're not parimutuel. They changed the statutes. Now in Louisiana last year, the Supreme Court also struck down machines. Now they're called historical horse racing. Kentucky didn't like the term instant racing, so they called them HHR. Louisiana struck them down, the Supreme Court, saying that they could only be used if the public approved them in a referendum. And that's still kind of ongoing, the situation there. So the states where they're really active and profitable, they've been approved in the state legislature. Now, in California, as Zoe just pointed out, the Indian lobby, the Native American lobby, is so strong politically that you would think that the chances of it being approved legislatively in California would be pretty long. But they're pushing the envelope right now to see what can get done out there. And it's badly needed, obviously, in the state of California.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of thoughts. I have many thoughts on this. I mean, first of all, I applaud the Stronach Group First Racing for trying this, because something, they need a break. They need some form of alternative revenue. And, despite what Scott DeRudy is saying, I'm sure that they realize this was not going to be easy. And that's, to me, is the reason. Why would you only put in 26 machines to start? Because you're not going to make a heavy investment in this, in not knowing 100% if this is going to fly. 26 machines was never going to move the needle 1 inch. I mean, they need 1,000 machines, and they need them at Del Mar, and they need them at Los Alamitos. And if things ever broke right, they need them in a standalone spot in downtown Los Angeles. And then, of course, not only do they lose the machines, but now they're saying, I guess they gave them 30 days, that if they don't get some sort of, relief or action from the courts, they're going to literally destroy the machines. So, that again tells me that Santa Anita was perhaps more wary of the fact that the fight was to come than maybe they would have let on. But again, I do commend them for trying this. And at the end of the day, we all know how important California racing is. And I hope at the end of the day that they prevail. But I did a little bit of research, and you know what this comes down to from the politics, as it always comes down to, money. And a couple things that I looked up. The person, and Zoe, you may know more about the gentleman. I'm not that familiar, other than Gavin Newsom. I don't know the first thing about California politics. But the attorney general out there is a fellow by the name of Rob Banta. And the Santa Anita team said they passed this by Banta. They told him of their intentions, and basically they didn't hear back. But why would Banta side with the Indian tribes? Well, follow the money. According to something called Cal Matters, since 2021, Indian tribes donated at least $225,000 to Rob Banta. According to Politico, right before he decided about whether or not he would approve fantasy sports betting in the state, which he deemed illegal afterwards, he received a $101,000 contribution from the Indian tribes. And how about this one? This was the Indians fighting the Indians. Now, here's one more report that I found very interesting. According to a website called SF First, that would be San Francisco First, there was a movement to shut down a card room in California because Banta's office was investigating whether or not it was a money laundering operation. Lo and behold, the card room gave him a $16,000 contribution. And guess what? The investigation was dropped. So, this stinks, but this is unfortunately, the way our American system works. It's all about money. And the Indian tribes, why are they so powerful? Because they contribute a ton of money to politicians in the state of California. Now, I could have investigated this all day, and this was a cursory investigation, but I also found no record whatsoever of Santa Anita, the Stornet Group, or First Racing making any donations to Rob Banta. So, keep that in mind. Money talks. And unfortunately, that's the way of the world today. So I don't think that they're going to necessarily, maybe they'll win something in the courts, but I don't think they have a friend in the Attorney General's office, Zoe.
No. Yeah. And this will play out in court, obviously, in the next 30 days, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned, because at least we'll know one way or the other, hopefully.
All right. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about, I'm sure, for shows to come, and we'll bring you up to speed if there is any court decisions. But Sing is going to get expensive, and it's going to drag on, no doubt, for some time. A lot more to come on the show. We're going to have our Gainesway guest of the week in just a minute. But first, these commercials from Keeland. Stay with us here on the TDN Writers Room podcast.
The TDN Writers Room is brought to you by Keeland. The 2-day January Horses of All Ages sale concluded with total sales for 700 horses for over $53 million, including almost $2.5 million in post-sale receipts. The figure was the highest gross for the auction since 2008. The average of almost $77,000 was up from last year's $48,000. That's a big amount of money. We'll be right back after this message from Keeland.
We do this so your granddaughter can work on a farm someday. So the stands will still be packed in 50 years. That's why we come to work every day, obsess over every single detail. Because the story of racing is written one moment at a time. And the future of our industry deserves nothing less. Keeland, every moment matters.
And now, the fastest horse of the week, brought to you by the Fast Sires at WinStar Farm. As we tape this podcast on Tuesday morning, we've had 19 racing days in January. And during those 19 days, WinStar Stallion Constitution already has 6 3-year-olds who won their career debuts, including the very impressive Chief Wallaby and Touch of Fire. And it just so happens that Constitution is one of 4 active stallions to have $1 million colts in the sales ring each of the last 4 years. And how about this? Only 3 stallions were ranked among the top 5 sires and progeny earnings in both 2023 and 24. Into Mischief, Gunrunner, Constitution. And Into Mischief and Gunrunner stand for more than twice the price. Now, the fastest horse of the week, it's Red Hot Turf Sprinter, Usually Wrong. Last month at the fairgrounds, he won a 5.5 furlong allowance with a Beyer speed figure of 101, or at least he thought he won. He was controversially DQ'd from that win. Anytime a horse is tons the best and is DQ'd, the decision is usually wrong. And the betting public saw through that on Saturday. The 5-year-old son of Looking at Lucky came back at the fairgrounds as a 3-2 favorite in the Duncan Kenner Stakes. He set the pace without cover, running into a 20-mile-an-hour headwind, and still went 5.5 on the grass in a course record 101.63. His 8th victory in 11 lifetime starts. No DQ. This time he got his picture taken, and his Beyer came back at 104, making Usually Wrong our fastest horse of the week.
Welcome in now this week's Gainesway guest of the week, and it's Rich Mendez. He's the main player over at Morplay Racing, which is making a lot of headlines of late, including the fact, Rich, that you purchased a horse to go in the Pegasus on Saturday in Brotha Keny. Obviously, this is a step up for him, but I understand you're pretty confident that he's going to run a good race. Tell us more about Brotha Keny and why you and your team decided to purchase him.
Well, look, I think Jose called us not too long ago. He said, look, I like this horse. I think there's some improvement. Last couple of races, he ran really well. Some horses that beat him went on and won a couple stakes races. So we acquired him on Jose's, we hope, experience and advice. And he's been working really well for us. And I think he's got a shot. I mean, at least, like I was saying earlier, he's got an opportunity to hit the board and to be competitive, I think.
So, Rich, what did you think when you got the 12 post? That was certainly not where you wanted to draw.
Yeah, I was in Utah skiing. I got a text message from Jose. We got the 12 post, but he's going to have to get out a little quick. So is Wider Barrios. So, we're hoping to get him out there and get him in the right position. We have Castellano on, which is a great jockey. So we're looking forward to him competing and, giving us a good show.
Well, Rich, glad to have you on the show. Finally, Bill's burying the lead here. She's so spicy. I want to go back to the very beginning and let's talk about Morplay Racing and how you actually got into the sport. Give us an overview of what your goals are, what they were, and how's it been for you thus far?
Well, look, I grew up very poor, poverty, the whole thing, but I lived in Brooklyn, New York, and I watched these races, through TV, and always loved it. Plus, my uncle was a jockey, and there's a long story about Saratoga, but he was always in the sport, and I wasn't close to him. Victor Sanchez, he works out in Gulfstream, but I always admired the athletics side of the horses and the competition. And always dreamt about maybe owning a horse. I had no idea anything about it. It was a crazy dream. But as our music, our record label was successful, I was able to start in acquiring a couple horses here and there without knowing absolutely anything. I met up with Harley DiRenzo, and we purchased a couple horses, and we started the process. It's a game of luck, right? But it's also a game that if you don't have the right team and the right people around you, you can drown very, very quickly. And we were able to acquire our first year a $40,000 purchase of No More Time that made it qualified to the Derby, but unfortunately wasn't able to compete. He was injured before. And then maybe I think it was a year later at the Fasig-Tipton July sale, we acquired two horses, which was one of them was Shisospicy as a wingling, I believe. And, look, it was a challenge to get my family and some of the, my son and my son-in-law and my wife, everyone behind me. I had a meeting one time with my accountants, and they were telling me not to do the horse stuff, right? It's a bad deal. And I looked at them all and I said, well, none of you guys were here when I started the record business, and that's a very, very risky business. And so we're going to do this. And so far, so good. We've been very, very lucky and very blessed. Shiso has been, I remember getting a text message from Donato Alani, and he said, this filly's going to take you places. And boy, she has. It's been an amazing experience.
Can you talk about the rush? I actually just watched it back this morning. I went to your website, Morplay Racing, and watched like the 10-minute lead up to the Breeders' Cup and watch you guys cheering her home. Can you explain the rush that you got being relatively new into the sport, standing there with your family and watching Shisospicy cross the line, not even just a nose head length in front by open lengths in the turf sprint?
As I was, someone interviewed me afterwards and they said, what does it feel like? And we were nominated for Grammys, billboards, things like that. But that experience, that rush of watching her and having, my son next to me, my son-in-law, my grandkids, my wife behind me, it was something that also I'll cherish forever because I know how hard it is to get there, much less win it. I watch it and I still get a little emotional myself still. It's an unbelievable feeling. So it's something that I hope my little ones, my little grandkids will remember for the rest of their lives. And now in this digital world, they'll be able to pull it up one day and see Papa and the family, with an experience like this. I hope it resonates and they stay in the game somehow.
Rich, you've had so much success, but it seems that when you jumped on the Jose D'Angelo bandwagon, that's when things really took off. And you're not the only one. I mean, he's a terrific young trainer. He's got a big stable, attracted a lot of owners. But talk to us about your relationship with Jose and what difference that has made in the success of Morplay Racing.
Yeah, so I got a lot of comments saying, spread your risk, right? Put horses here with this trainer, There was something about Jose. I love the underdog, right? And I remember meeting him for the first time. I was sitting in 10 Palms at Gulfstream, and there's a knock on the window, and I asked my son, "Who's that?" And he's like, okay, he came over, kind of like, because of the music stuff, he knew who I was, and I just he's young, and I thought, you know what, give him a chance. And I wanted to make sure that I gave him a real chance, right? Not just a one-off. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give you every one of my horses that I own, at least 50% or more. I'm going to give them to you. And it's been amazing. I've got a great relationship with him. He communicates with me really, really well. His fire is the same fire that we have, or we had in the music business. And so it just all comes together, watching him and his father, win at that same day. If you watch that replay, it just made sense, and it's worked. So I'm not gonna, as they say, don't if it's working, don't break it up, and I'm gonna keep it that way for now.
So sticking with Shisospicy, tell us what you have in store for her. I understand she'll be headed next to the Middle East. What plans are, and take us through what you see for her 2026 campaign.
We don't want to overdo it with her, right? We're going to give her time. We decided to go to Saudi. She did what she did here in the States, and we thought there aren't big races for a sprint for a sprinter, Philly on the grass. And look, the pot was $2 million, and there's some competition on that side that she hasn't faced. So we thought let's do it, let's try it. And for right now, Saudi is the place she'll go. We're not sure about Dubai. She'll leave on the 2nd. She's been working lights out every single time. So we feel that she'll have an opportunity out there to do the same thing she's done out here.
Rich, you've mentioned the music interest more than a couple of times, and your business. What exactly is your business? Because in order to fund the horse racing entity, at least for now, before that starts to pay for itself, which it's already doing, what is your music business that you have?
So we own a record label and a publishing company. We've had that for 16, 17 years now. It's called Rich Music. We sign artists, and we develop the artists. We've had 6 artists, and all of them have become superstars. We worked really hard and just kept them ourselves instead of going to a major, which is Universal, Sony, Warner Brothers. We kept them ourselves, and it's worked out great for us. We worked really, really hard. And sometimes even, I was talking to Josh, my son, my partner, we worked 16 years and just relentless. And we look back and was like, okay, this is what it gave us, right? It's been amazing, and it's given us the wherewithal to be in this great sport of thoroughbreds.
Can we bring some of those guys to the horse racing side?
It's a challenge. We have brought them because it's in the Latino space. When people say, well, let me see their socials or let me see who they are, they're not aware. The only person that they know is Bad Bunny, right?
Right.
And I've talked to their management about bringing him along. One of his shows, he brings out a horse. But, they've come and they've enjoyed it. But, absolutely. If the time is right. And I think on my first Breeders' Cup, we tried to get a few of them out there. It just didn't work out because, of course, artists like to be pampered, and there wasn't room for that pampering at the time.
Bill's all about Bad Bunny, obviously. As soon as you said that, Bill's ears just perked up. I've called you colorful before, Rich. You have teamed up with someone perhaps a little bit more colorful than you. What has brought you and Michael Ivorone together? Because you've teamed up on some horses.
What's crazy is when people say, don't judge the book, right, by the cover. Right. And I got to talk to him a little bit at the Breeders' Cup. He's a super cool dude. He's just he's just that's just the way he is, right? He's very colorful, but behind that, he's a good dude, and he knows the horse racing side of things. And we decided, you know what? Why not? Look, we've had a challenge in this business as well. We celebrate a little different. We enjoy it. We don't, for us, it's like going to the Super Bowl or going to the national championship. You see the president out there enjoying it, and you see everybody enjoying it. we enjoy it. So we celebrate. So, you know, we've had some challenges with that side because people think that it's not proper for the sport. Well, I say, you know what? It's a new day now.
So I assume you're not going to wear a leather jumpsuit to the Pegasus, however,
No,
right, Rich?
I won't do that. No, that's not our thing. Look, and that's Mike's thing, and good for him, right? He has his own thing. He has his own fashion, which is great. But you know, there's nothing wrong with it. I think he's good for the sport as well. It's different, and I believe it or not, it's a longer story. But I think the sport needs, you know, people like us. You know, there's a lot of people like us that maybe would like to come, but maybe haven't had the opportunity or probably don't get let in, you know? So, like I said, he's a good guy. The partnership has been fine so far.
And Rich, back to the horses, you mentioned that you had one of your first successes was with a horse that was on the Kentucky Derby trail, got hurt. Obviously, that this is the goal for everyone in the sport, and I'm sure it's your goal as well. Has it been frustrating experience not getting quite to the starting gate? And how much will you pursue in the future, you know, maybe at the sales or buying privately the type of horses that might take more play into the Kentucky Derby picture?
Yeah, look, the ride that he gave us was great. And the day I was there when he got hurt, and I had to call my grandson and said, hey, we're not going to go to the Derby. So it was emotional. But yeah, look, I think I've learned a lot in the last few years, partnering up with the right people on colts. But yeah, man, look, that's the dream, right, is to go to the Derby. We're definitely going to try. And yes, buying at the sales or maybe even buying something off the track. Absolutely. I want to get there.
Rich, we can see your Breeders' Cup trophy behind. You're most likely going to have an Eclipse Award to follow with that. What's the painting behind you as well? We got a quick look before you came on.
That's Cody's Wish. Cody's Wish was one of my favorite horses when I got involved because, first of all, he's an amazing horse, right? He was a great horse. But the story behind it was even more amazing, you know, with you know, the way it all worked out. You know, as I was mentioning before, my grandson had open heart surgery when he was 4 months old. Now he's great. He loves the horse business, the horse side of things. He literally calls every single race, you know. So it's a special painting. I saw it in Saratoga and I picked it up, and you know, we actually have a mare in full to Cody's Wish now as well.
Oh, cool! Very cool.
We're excited. Yeah, this is all exciting, and thank you for even thinking. You know, I'm hoping that we can, you know, get an Eclipse Award. And look, for me, all of this is, I understand how hard it is to get to this level. So I always cherish these moments. And, you know, even being on here with you guys, you know, it's pretty cool. It's an amazing experience so far.
Terrific. I'll just mention that accolades are coming in for Shisospicy. She's actually made the final 3 cut in 3 Eclipse Award categories, and I'm pretty sure no other horse has done that this year. The champion 3-year-old filly, champion filly and mare sprinter, and the champion filly and mare turf horse. Rich, what's your predictions for the Eclipse Awards for Shisospicy this year?
Listen, I would love to take home all 3, right? There's some good competition in there, and I think, look, if we go home with 1, it's just going to be amazing, right? It's a blessing. So, you know, 1 would be great, you know, but I'm just happy to be there, to be honest with you. It's prediction. If I had to pick 1, would probably be the sprint division. If I had to pick 1, just seeing what I'm seeing and what people and you guys and different articles, I think that's the one that she might be able to go home with.
Can you just talk really quickly, Rich, about the decision to run her through the November sale? She was bought back for a whopping $5.2 million, because a lot of people might look at that and go, oh, my God. Oh, my goodness.
Look, you know, it's a crazy story because I had talked to Brian over at Gainesway, and I said, Brian, I want to put her in a sale after the race. And, you know, we talked about a reserve, and he said, Rich, she's going to have to win to even come close to that reserve. And that reserve was $5 million. And so when we won, he calls me and says, well, not only did she win, but she kicked ass. Like she dominated, right? So when I spoke to Fahad and I said, look, this is what it is, he said that, if it reaches a certain amount of money, I'll go ahead and sell my share. There was nothing bad about the relationship. It was great. And when she went, I told him, I said, I'm going to put the reserve a little higher because I think I want to keep her. She's the brand. She's our brand. She's the face of our brand right now. You think she's so spicy, Morplay Racing, which is what we do as well. We're a branding company. So we decided to buy them out, and she went for $5.2 million. The reserve was, I think, $8 million. But I think, again, the value that she brings to being part of Morplay Racing is far more worth than those numbers. And I think people say, it's a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money. But I think she has the potential to do even better.
So you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I need a sweatshirt, by the way. I need a She's So Spicy sweatshirt. I've got a sweatshirt.
I've got a bunch of gear. I'll definitely bring it out to the Pegasus when I see you.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for being our Gainesway guest of the week here on the Thoroughbred Daily News podcast. Good luck with Brotha Keny and the Pegasus. And of course, great. Wishing you nothing but the best with She's So Spicy this year, a very special horse. And we enjoyed talking to you, and it looks like it's going to be another great year for Morplay Racing. Keep it up.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, Rich.
Take care.
Guest of the week, Rich Mendez, was brought to you by Gainesway, the home of Mackenzie, your source for Grade 1 dirt success. Mackenzie leads all third crop sires with 3 Grade 1 winners, and he also has had 5 starters in Grade 1 races, and that's the most among his sire crop. Those Grade 1 winners include Baeza, the winner of the Pennsylvania Derby last year, with perhaps more to come this year as a 4-year-old. Mackenzie stands at Gainesway for a fee of just $75,000.
Mackenzie in a dominant performance.
$1,200,000 right there, $1,200,000.
Baeza gets his moment in the sun in the Pennsylvania Derby.
Chancer Mick Patrick wins the Champagne impressively.
Spectacular display from Scottish Lassie, who's in front by 15 lengths.
In this week's edition of First Things First, seeing as we're based in California, how about we celebrate the Cowbreds? Vodka takes the unusual Turf Classic Invitational. Here with the winning connections, and let's start with Connie Baker, the breeder. Connie, it's almost an embarrassment of riches, not only with Vodka, but he's the half-brother to Almond Joy, one of your other horses.
That is true. She have a great mom, and she produces some great babies, and Aggie trains them awesomely.
How does it feel for you being so accomplished with one mare, especially here on Cal Cup Day?
It feels amazing. It feels unusual. Heat.
Ooh, pun intended there. Aggie, you got a big rendition of Happy Birthday. It was your birthday several days ago. Can you sum up in a few words what the past 12 months has been like for you on your breakout year, Aggie?
This has been a dream come true. Everything I've worked for my whole life has been thinking about coming to a place like Santa Anita and winning races like this and having horses like this. There's nothing in the world I'd rather be doing, and they bring me the joy of my life. Vodka's just my man. He's my boyfriend with a tail, and I'm loving life right now.
All right, guys, let's hear it once more for Vodka!
Woo! Vodka.
And they're off in the California Chrome Cal Cup Derby.
Dan, 2 wins on the card for you today. How does it feel to win a race of this magnitude? Because we all saw what California Chrome did out here in Southern California.
Well, I'm just really thankful to all the operation, everyone at Harris Farms, to Darren and Johnny, and obviously John. There was a point in my career where I had 4 horses and they were all Harris Farms. So I owe him a lot, and I'm really proud to win a big race for Harris Farms, and in John's memory, it's a big deal, and I'm really proud.
Darren, you're the new CEO of Harris Farms. It seems like this is very emotional for you. How are you feeling right now?
Well, emotional, absolutely. I know John's here in spirit. We have a lot of people back in Kalinga and Sanger, and a lot of people have said, Harris Farms is going away. We're not going away. Harris Farms is here. We're excited to keep running. This is part of the heritage and legacy that Harris is going to continue. So this one's for John.
Start the ride.
Start the ride. We'll be back.
Really hard not to root for Aggie Ordonez. Talking about vodka there. She really has had a terrific year. And how about the statement from Darren Filkins, the CEO of Harris Farms? They are not going away anytime soon. Calbreds are here to stay. Just do want to remind you, with the Pegasus going on, we are continuing to race at Santa Anita this weekend. We'll have racing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Of course, the big story this weekend on the racetrack will be the Pegasus World Cup Invitational races at Gulfstream Park. Randy Moss will be part of the NBC team covering it, of course. And we look forward to seeing him and his team on NBC and doing the usual great job that they do. So many races on the card, a terrific card. I thought, guys, we would just concentrate on the 3 races that have the Pegasus World Cup brand. So let's start, and they're good races. They're there's no arrogates and gun runners in there. We understand that, but they're, very competitive, wide open races. And I think people are really going to enjoy them, particularly the bettors, because they're head scratchers when it comes from the handicapping standpoint, at least to me. Maybe Randy and Zoe will think otherwise. The first of the 3 is the 10th race, the Pegasus World Cup Filly and Mare Turf. I thought this was a very difficult race. I went with Breath Away with Oisin Murphy for Miguel Clement. Had a nice run in the matriarch last time out. Drew well in this race. Likes Gulfstream. 2 for 6 lifetime with 2 seconds. Like most of my picks, I'm not real confident. I might have picked In Our Time for Safi Joseph and Irad Ortiz, but I don't like the post position, post 11. Some speed inside of this horse. As good as Irad is, it's going to be, I think, pretty difficult to work out a decent trip there. But you know what? I'm just guessing. Randy, do you have a firmer opinion on this one than I do?
I've got no opinion on it because we're not doing it on NBC. Okay. We're doing the Pegasus World Cup and the World Cup Turf for the boys, and that's where all my attention has been going.
Right, but and so Zoe, put you on the spot and get a pick from you.
Take the ladies away. In our time, how about that? Wire to wire.
All right.
It's a super tough race. This is probably one of the best betting races on the card for 500,000. I could make a case for every single one of these horses in here. I'm not going to because we don't have time. But I would look towards the inside of the field. I think Destined d'Oro, yes, she's got to step up. She's got to win over the track. For trainer Brad Cox is well drawn on the inside. Breath Away, obviously, for Miguel Clement. She likes Gulfstream Park. She's only been off the board once there in 6 starts. You're getting Oisin Murphy, which is interesting as far as I'm concerned, to ride the Miguel Clement trainee. Classic Q's got speed. It is the most wide open betting race. And maybe you could just bet the jockeys. Maybe you just want to go with Chad Brown on Whiskey Decision and Flavian Pratt. Could be a way to go here, coming off a win in the Athenia Stakes. Never run at Gulfstream Park. So I'm with Randy. I have not got a clue who is going to win the filly and mare rendition of the Pegasus Turf.
Well, hopefully we'll come up with some winners there, but that is a terrific race. Randy, now since you took a pass on that, I want a definite winner from you on the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. This is a grade 1 $1 million race going a mile and 1/8 on the turf. And I know you did a deep dive into this one because you always do when you have to broadcast races on NBC. So I'll give you I'll let you take the lead here. Who do you like?
All right. To me, on paper, the likely favorite and the horse, I think it's the horse to beat, is Program Trading, who wasn't going to win the Breeders' Cup Mile. He was in too deep in there, but he had a bad trip in the mile. He got blocked coming down the stretch. You look at almost all his earlier races, and they're good enough to win this. But there are a couple of other horses in here that really intrigue me. First of all, there's a no speed to run with Cabo Spirit, who George Papapadromou has shipped in from California to run in the Pegasus. Cabo Spirit can occasionally run well when he doesn't make the lead, but he's really a horse that almost all his very best races have come when he's on an uncontested lead. And it looks like he's going to get that at Gulfstream Park, which has a short stretch like Santa Anita, and that plays into Cabo Spirit's strengths. The other horse I want to focus on here, and he's going to be a decent price. I say decent price, 6-1, something like that. One Stripe, the horse from South Africa, who is trained by Graham Motion, right? If you go back and watch his allowance win at Gulfstream Park, John Velasquez was on him that day, and the South African rider is coming in to ride him at Gulfstream Park, his very first mount in the United States. But his name is Gavin Larina, who's won 2,600 races in his career. So he's an accomplished rider in South Africa. But anyway, the horse could not have been more impressive in that allowance race at Gulfstream Park. And he's really coming into this race clicking on all cylinders. So I think One Stripe definitely has a chance to upset the apple cart here at a pretty decent price. Cagino has good numbers as well, but he got a rail trip last time, and now he's got to deal with an outside post. So that's a 2 or 3 length difference right there. But those are the horses I like.
One Stripe for sure, because he finally put everything together. He had some travel problems when he first came over, prior to the Woodbine Mile. I think he'd been to 3 different countries and I don't know, had how many months off. Only beaten 5 lengths, notable speech. I draw a line through the Del Mar race, and the Gulfstream race was visually very, very impressive. Anytime you can win by 5 going a mile on the grass at Gulfstream, that's an awful lot. I wish that Johnny V was riding this horse rather than his regular rider, which sounds trite. But Johnny V's an American jockey. He's been on the horse. He knows the track at Gulfstream Park. But I have every faith that Gavin will ride this horse very well. So One Stripe for sure. Program Trading for sure. No Price, Pratt and Brown. And then I like Major Dude as well. He's now, 5, 6? Where is he? He's 6. He's 6. He's run well at Gulfstream in the past. He comes in off a very nice race at Belmont at Aqueduct in October. He's briefly freshened and comes in with a good series of works for trainer Todd Pletcher.
Well, I'll make the very boring pick of Program Training. Like Randy said, he was in over his head in the Breeders' Cup Mile and had a very poor trip. Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt. Obviously, you can't go wrong there. But I want to throw a question back to Randy. You had brought up the point several times, especially around the Breeders' Cup time, how California turf horses are just don't do well when they ship outside of California and run against East Coast horses. There are 4 California shippers in here, including Cabo Spirit. So I was a little bit surprised, and I agree with you. I mean, he figures to get a very good trip, but that factor doesn't concern you. The lack of success Californians have. Okay.
Oh, it totally concerns me. And if Cabo Spirit wasn't in a situation where he was absolutely the only early speed in the field on a turf course that's hard, extremely firm, can be speed favoring, short stretch, I would kind of throw him out like I do most of the California horses when they're running against Eastern horses. But, I think there's so many things he has working in his favor here that I think you need to give him an extra look. And one more thing about Gavin Lorena, the jockey. I agree with Zoe. I would rather have Johnny V on him. Johnny V was already committed to Shug in this race when they reached out to him. But Lorena was quoted in South Africa in a South African newspaper as saying, and I think this is important, you have to ride this horse very quietly in the early stages, and then he has a very, very good finish. And I know if you look at the Breeders' Cup, Graham Motion was very distressed to see Juan Hernandez dueling for the early lead in the Breeders' Cup Mile with this horse from the inside post position. So Lorena knows the horse well. He rode him a lot in South Africa, and he knows that you can't really rush him too much during the early stages.
I shouldn't be so hard on my fellow South African. I was born in Johannesburg, right?
Didn't know that about you, Zoe. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
No, really?
Yeah, Joburg. I used to be quite fluent in Afrikaans.
Okay.
Used to be.
Not anymore?
No, just when I was a kid. But
okay.
No.
All right. So the big show is the Pegasus World Cup Invitational, $3 million purse. From a handicapping standpoint, I've got a knock on the horses that are going to be, I believe, the first 3 favorites. I mean, Disco Time is 5 for 5, but he's never beaten anybody. I mean, 2 starts back, this horse, my goodness, was in the St. Louis Derby. He's got 1 grade 3 win to his credit. I know his numbers are outstanding, particularly in the Dwyer, where he got a 107 buyer. Tappan Street is just slow. That 90 buyer in the return race and the allowance was, and also the race was not impressive. I'd love to see what Randy has to say about that. Whydabarrio drew poorly, and you never know which Whydabarrio is going to show up at any time. He's a very erratic horse. So sort of the process of elimination, I came up with Full Serrano in here for John Sadler. He did win the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile in 2024. Didn't have a very productive 2025, but you can read between the lines a little bit, and I think his year looks a little bit better than it does. He comes out, romps in his first start of 2025, going a mile. In the Goodwood, he ran second. At the time, we didn't know how good Nevada Beach was, who beat him. Nevada Beach has turned out to be, again, a horse that has, I think, overperformed. Then he had no chance in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, contending on an early pace. It went 21-3, 44-4. I have tremendous respect for John Sadler. Again, another good betting race, but I'm hoping to get 5-6 to 1 on him. I think he might sneak in there. Zoe, what do you think?
I'm hopping on Disco Time for sure. Numbers wise, he is the best horse in the race. It's not his fault. He hasn't run against anyone that's been any good, but 107 and 101 just jump off the page. I'm sorry, Florent Giroux, but I love that Flavien Prat is riding this horse for the first time. He does draw the rail. And I just feel that he's the best horse who is not facing the best horses that the USA has to offer. I was disappointed with Full Serrano in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. He's got a ship to down to Florida from Southern California, so he has to do that as well. And I just feel that the horse that draws the rail is the best horse in the race, and he'll prove it. That's Disco Time.
To me, only two horses in this race have a solid chance to win, and that's Disco Time and Whydabarrio. Visually, I love Disco Time's last race and some of the earlier ones as well. With Whydabarrio, last year at this time, the narrative on Whydabarrio was that, yeah, he's really good, but which Whydabarrio are we going to get? Are we going to get the Whydabarrio that was running recently at Gulfstream Park and wasn't running that fast? Or were we going to get the Breeders' Cup Classic Whydabarrio? That's what we were saying. And it turned out Saffie Joseph had him primed and ready to go, and we got the Breeders' Cup Classic Whydabarrio. And now we're saying the same thing. So it's going to take the Breeders' Cup Classic and the Pegasus World Cup Whydabarrio, in my opinion, to beat Disco Time. But to me, that's where the race comes down. Now, as far as Full Serrano goes, got a lot of respect for him. Here's the problem in here, in my opinion, with Full Serrano. A ton of competing speed in this race against him. Madaket Road has got to go. That's the only way he's going to win, going a mile and an eighth. Mika, however you say the horse's name, speed, got to go. Captain Cook has been sprinting. He typically has speed. He's got to go. Full Serrano really is a kind of horse that needs to be right up there in the mix. I think the pace is going to be toxic, and I think that's going to set up for Disco Time from just off the pace and from Whydabarrio as well.
Rand, I understand what you're saying about Full Serrano, but I was hoping Joel Rosario, who's not a very aggressive rider, might be able to haul him back to third or fourth early. He did at least come from second when he won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. But you do make a good point in that. There's something that did worry me. Randy, do you have any insights into the jockey change on Disco Time? Hard to fire a guy who's 5 for 5 in Florent Giroux on a horse. Hard not to take Flavien Prat, who is probably will win another Eclipse Award this year.
No insight yet. We're going to talk to Brad Cox on Friday, but I love that Zoe's kind of gigging the riders here a little bit. I like that, Zoe. There you go. Nothing against Florent Giroux, but you love Flavien Prat in this spot.
But I love Flavien Prat. I mean, that's just as simple as that. If you can get Prat over anybody, I'm going to take Prat. I don't care who the other rider is. We'll just leave it at that.
All right. And also interesting to note that Whydabarrio will be ridden by Irad Ortiz, who rode Tappan Street in his last start. Randy, one more question. I mean, as a numbers guy, do you find Tappan Street, as I said, just not fast enough to be competitive with the very best horses in this race? Or could he surprise us from a numbers standpoint?
No. That's my opinion. He's never run a race good enough to compete with the numbers that Disco Time and Whydabarrio can run. And the one thing about Tappan Street also, that's always concerned me a little bit. He's the kind of horse, and I know you guys probably remember this, he has to be ridden like crazy just to get what he's given so far. He's not a very willing horse. He's got, the riders really need to stay on him at, like Zoe would probably say, like riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
I mean, the jockeys have to be exhausted when they get off him. But he's a winning horse. He's just going to have to do something. He's going to have to run faster than he's ever run before.
Hey, can Skippy hit the board?
Significantly faster.
Can Skippy hit the board? I think he can.
Yeah. It's a race where Charles, sure.
No, he was third last year.
It looks like it is. It looks on paper like his numbers are declining a little bit, but Safi said before his last race that this horse is only like 75%. He's not going to run his best race. This is to get him ready for the Pegasus World Cup. So I think you can expect improvement. And if he gets a really fast pace in front of him and he can sit, 5th or 6th, then come on. He's got a shot to hit the board, I think.
Yeah.
Randy, is this on NBC or an NBC affiliate?
Yes.
Absolutely on NBC.
It is absolutely on NBC. We'll have the Pegasus World Cup, the Pegasus World Cup Turf, and a preview of the Holy Bull coming up the next week, which looks like right now like a very intriguing matchup between Nearly from the Todd Pletcher barn and Cannoneer from the Brad Cox barn.
All right. We will certainly look forward to that coverage. All right. We're going to take a break. We're going to hear from our friends at the PHBA. Also, Zoe will fill us in about the first TV work of the week. We come back. We'll catch up on the last weekend's Lecomte Stakes, the Silver Bullet Day, and want to find out whether or not Randy Moss had bought some cigars to hand out to Senor Buscador for becoming a daddy. We'll be right back here on the TDN Writers Room podcast.
And the TDN Writers Room also brought to you by Pennsylvania Breds, the PHBA, the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association. They would like to thank all of the Stallion Season auction donors and buyers for making the auction a big success. In fact, they're so thankful. The PHBA is holding a second chance auction beginning this Thursday, Jan 22, and running until Monday at 9 p.m. That's January 26th. If you didn't get a chance to bid the first time, this is your opportunity not to get left out. And remember, if you breed to a Pennsylvania sire, the Breeders' Award is 40%, whether or not you even own the horse by the time it gets to the races. If you own and race your Pennsylvania bred horse at Parks, win a $50,000 maiden special weight race, for example, you'll get $58,800 compared to a non-Pennsylvania bred purse of just $30,000. That's a big difference. They also have seasons available at the auction from stallions in 5 other states. For more info, you can visit pabred.com or you can call Brian Sanfratello at 610-444-1050.
The Pennsylvania breeding program is the best program in the country. The Stallion Awards, the owner bonuses, also the restricted races and the stakes races for Pennsylvania breds. This year, 8 breeders are on track to earn over $200,000 in Breeders' Awards, and 2 could hit the $1 million mark. We have the best program in the country. Take advantage of the fantastic program that we have.
Learn more at pabred.com.
Be a smarter better with First TV, the best horses, with thousands of exclusive morning workouts, all at your fingertips and delivered right into your inbox. Everything you need to be informed. Be smart, bet smart with First TV.
It is time for the First TV Work of the Week. The Work of the Week is, of course, brought to you by First TV. Let's talk about White Abarrio. We've not seen him since finishing 4th in the Jockey Club Gold Cup last summer at Saratoga. He worked 4 furlongs in a tepid 51.86 at Gulfstream Park on Sunday for Safi Joseph Jr. On Saturday, next Saturday, he'll be back to defend his Pegasus World Cup title, and he was made the 4-1 second choice by the morning line maker. White Abarrio, of course, was scratched by veterinarians prior to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile and scratched from his last start, the December 27th Mr. Prospector Stakes, by his ownership group.
Well, the big story on the racetrack on Saturday, well, there's a couple of them. Little comp stakes, the first graded stakes race of the year for the 3-year-old colt on the way to the Kentucky Derby. And it was the Cherie DeVaux story, Cherie DeVaux show, as she ran 1-2 with Golden Tempo, beating stablemate Mesquite by 3/4 of a length. The 81 buyer, Randy can talk about that, probably doesn't get the buyer guys too excited about the performances, but these are two late developing horses. I talked to Cherie after the race, and she thinks they're only going to get better. Of the two, I actually preferred Mesquite because he had a wide trip on the turn, whereas Golden Tempo saved ground. When the sheet numbers come out, I don't know if they're out yet or not. I'm sure Mesquite will get the better number of the two. Golden Tempo is going to stay in at the fairgrounds, and she said Mesquite is going to head out of town, and she'll look for a race there. Maybe the Bluegrass will be the final pre-Derby destination for him. And that's just me guessing about that. Randy, did we see two legitimate Derby contenders in there?
The buyer speed figure comes up in 81.
Right.
Okay. Now there are a couple different ways though to look at this race. Okay. If you just look at the Lecomte in isolation, you don't think about what's next. You don't think about development. You just look at this race as an entity by itself. The best horse in the race was Chip Honcho. He got a brutal ride from Paco Lopez. Broke poorly from the starting gate, got rushed up to be 4 to 5 wide on the first turn. Lopez was in his mouth fighting him. The horse was rank all the way around the first turn and early backstretch. He was 3 wide around the second turn. He was still fighting for the lead at the 8th pole, and he gets beat a length and 3/4, right? He was the best horse in that race on that day. Now, is he going to be the best horse going forward? I doubt it, right? You got to really give credit to Golden Tempo for being able to advance to a graded stakes Kentucky Derby prep off of only one 6-furlong maiden race, right? So you know the horse is going to take steps forward as he gets more experience and he develops more. But it's going to take a lot of development to go from an 81 buyer speed figure in the Lecomte to a horse that would be competitive in the Kentucky Derby. And I just don't know if that's realistic to think that can happen. As far as Mesquite goes, he overcame so much trouble in his career debut or his maiden win. It was the second lifetime start. He got a 75 buyer that day at Churchill Downs. But my gosh, with all the trouble that he had, you could watch that race and you could think, man, if he gets a clean trip, this could be a horse that could run a 90 or a 92 buyer or something like that with a decent trip. That's what I was looking for out of Mesquite in the Lecomte. And he got a very good trip in the Lecomte, and he could only get to an 80 buyer, which to me was disappointing. So I doubt if this is going to wind up being a very relevant Kentucky Derby prep in the end, but all credit to Golden Tempo for winning a graded stakes and only a second lifetime start.
All credit to Cherie DeVaux to run 1-2. That's a lot to do. We're in January. We're talking about a race that comes up in May. That's a long way away. And it's too long for me to even think of one of these as a Kentucky Derby prospect. There was a very nice race by both of them. I did like Golden Tempo on top. I'm glad he won. Did it blow me away? No. Will his next start blow me away? Maybe. I don't know. We're still at the beginning of January. I'm just going to take a wait and see approach.
And they are both bred to get significantly better as the distances get longer. Golden Tempo's by Kirtland, Mesquite's by Union Rags. So more distance, the better.
Well, Mike Rapoli is always in the news, and we'll touch upon this briefly. I did a story in today's TDN. We're recording this on a Tuesday, where in a nutshell, Mike Rapoli is suing everybody and anybody he can think of in horse racing in order to facilitate the change that he's been demanding. Now, this is not your normal lawsuit where, there's an obvious, good guy and bad guy, and there's an obvious even plaintiff. So the entities that he named to me are TOBA, the NTRA, the Breeders' Cup, and the Jockey Club. And I think what he wants to accomplish, and I know what he wants to accomplish, is through the process of discovery that they will have to open their doors and pull back the curtain, and he and his legal team could get a better look at the inside machinations of what's going on there at these organizations. And he says if this doesn't work, he is leaving the game. He is giving up on his long raging battle to bring changes to the sport. And we'll just have to see where this goes. It's going to take some time and not go away easily. I don't know if Mike is going to win this or not. I do admire the fact that he cares about the game and wants to make changes, Randy.
So I got a little rabbit hole to go down. So why don't you go first here?
I'd like Mike to come up with a solution rather than trying to sue everyone. Give us something. Don't spend millions on lawyers to sue the industry you want to be a part of. Put the millions into aftercare if you're talking about aftercare. Do something other than just fight everyone. Go ahead, Randy.
I could understand that. To me, sometimes fight is necessary.
Yeah.
Here's my rabbit hole. If you follow politics at all, you've probably heard of a guy named Robert Gates, who has one of the most unbelievable resumes of anybody that's been involved in politics in the last 40 or 50 years. Former director of the CIA, former defense secretary, served under Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2, Obama. He was actually, against his better judgment, he was Donald Trump's first national security advisor, even though he'd been harshly critical of Trump prior to Trump's first election. And he wrote a book about his experiences, his brief experiences with Trump. I've got it around here somewhere. The book was called Duty. And what he explained was that he was very honest in the book. He said there were things about Trump that greatly concerned him, but also things that he thought were positive. And one of the positive things, he said Trump was by nature a disruptor who loved to shake things up. Now, of course, Gates thinks that Trump's disruptive nature has gone much too far. But back then, Gates saw that there were a lot of things in government and in the Pentagon and all that were broken and needed to be fixed. And nobody was willing to spend the political capital to actually roll their sleeves up and be aggressive enough to fix them. And he thought that Trump's disruptive tendencies, if they were skillfully applied, could be a rare opportunity to improve the government, right? Now, you know where I'm going with this.
Oh, yeah.
The same thing is happening in horse racing. Same thing is happening. Horse racing is obviously struggling to be relevant with the public. It doesn't have a league or a commissioner. It's badly fragmented, lacks cohesiveness. To a certain extent, as Rapoli says, horse racing is fundamentally broken and no one seems to be willing to do the dirty work to try to fix it. I'm not really comparing Mike Rapoli to Donald Trump, but Rapoli is also a disruptor. You may not, I don't agree with everything that he says or does, but he's knowledgeable about the sport. He's passionate about the sport. And as much as we love tradition, right? All these problems in horse racing are not just going to suddenly magically disappear. And if you don't do anything about them and you just cling to tradition and you don't try to solve the problems, it's like wearing ankle boots in quicksand. Sometimes it takes disruption to make changes, right? So in my opinion, if Rapoli's disruptive tendencies can be skillfully applied, like Trump, then this could be a rare opportunity to improve things. It's kind of like we've talked about HISA in the past, right? We knew that the sport was reluctant to change. We knew there were going to be a lot of pushback. We knew there was going to be some proverbial blood on the floor. But in the end, it might be worth it. I'm hoping that's what the situation is here with Rapoli.
Let's hope.
Well, we shall see. And again, this is something that is going to drag on quite, when you get the courts involved and lawyers, nothing is going to be settled overnight. But I do believe one thing he says. I think this is I totally believe him when he said this is his last arrow in his or last bullet in his holster, that he will, the threats to leave the sport. I totally believe that if at the end of the day, he doesn't think that he accomplished what he's trying to accomplish, I think that he will get out of the sport. Now let's talk about
he's a self-proclaimed disruptor. I mean, Randy hit the nail on the head. Like, he has called himself a disruptor. Self-proclaimed.
No, he is a disruptor. I can tell you that much.
And I mean, here's my concern. Okay. We know that racing, and we talked about it last week. We don't want to be too negative. It's, in all the metrics, it's on a relatively steep decline. Foal crop, everything you want to look at, pretty much. Attendance. If this doesn't work, what's next? I mean, who's going to step in and try to force the changes that badly need to be done? I don't know.
Well, Rapoli answered that question in my article. He said and predicted that, and in 5 years, if racing doesn't change dramatically, there'll be 4 or 5 racing states left and a full crop of 10,000 foals a year. I don't think it's quite that draconian, but it's certainly, unfortunately, probably heading more, in that direction. It's certainly not heading in a good direction. But I want to change the subject because too much doom and gloom here on today's podcast. There was some great news out of Kentucky this week. Randy Moss's favorite horse, Senor Buscador, is a daddy. Randy, you look at that smile on his face. The first ever foal by Senor Buscador was was born on Monday at Showan Place in Paris, Kentucky, a colt out of the mare by the name of Oriole. What a cutie there. And Randy, did you go out and buy some nice Cubans for your friend, Senor Buscador?
I'd like to give him some carrots, and I'd like to whisper in his ear too. Don't let them tell you have to be 5 wide on both turns to win.
Right.
You can save ground. You can do it.
And I'm sure when we're doing our 2030 podcast, you'll be picking this fella in some sort of race somewhere.
West Point Thoroughbreds and Hall of Fame trainer Shug McGahee almost won the Pegasus World Cup turf last year. They had Integration, who was second, beaten only a neck. And now they're back in the Pegasus turf again Saturday with Cugino, the 7-2 second choice on the morning line. John Velasquez is named to ride the 5-year-old son of Twirling Candy. Meanwhile, West Point also has a promising 3-year-old colt on the dirt in Reagan's honor, co-owned by namesake Reagan and Gordo and Gabriel Spider Dignan. Reagan's Honor scored a front-running maiden win at Fairgrounds on Saturday with an 81 buyer speed figure.
All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life. Make new friends and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
So on that note of good cheer and a beautiful, just cute as a button foal by Senor Buscador, why don't we wrap things up? And I want to thank our team that worked so hard each week, and my co-hosts Randy Moss and Zoe Cadman. Our Gainesway guest of the week this week was Rich Mendez. We wish him well in this week's Pegasus with Brotha Keny. Also the people that work behind the scenes, and they're the ones that really drive the show and make it look so good in the final product. And that's a team of Sue Finley, Katie Petruniak, Anthony LaRocca, and Aaliyah LaRocca. We'll be back next week. Enjoy Pegasus weekend, everybody, and see you next week.